As we look towards the 2023 NFL draft, there's been a name that's recently getting a little bit more buzz around the Packers, and that's Tennessee wide receiver Jalin Hyatt. So I wanted to take a little bit closer look at Jalin Hyatt as a prospect and see, what is his role if the Packers were indeed interested in him. There are reports going back to around the Super Bowl time frame that the Packers were highly interested in Hyatt. So why is that? He's a little bit undersized on the weight side. If you look at his RAS score, he's got a 1.28 on his weight, weighing in at only 176 pounds. So that's pretty slight. I mean, he's 6 foot, so he's decent height. It's not like he's 5'10", like Randall Cobb was when he was coming out. But he is on the lighter side. You have questions about how well that's going to hold up in the NFL. But he's got elite speed. He ran a 4.440, got explosiveness when it comes to, his vertical and his broad jump. So making him a really good deep threat in Tennessee's offense. The big concern too, again, with his weight being, how is he going to hold up against press coverage? So Tennessee's offense used him a lot where they put him in the slot or they stacked him behind another receiver to get him clean releases off the line because he can fly off the ball. So he would just burn by dudes. In the game against Alabama, he had 6 receptions. 5 of them were touchdowns. And of those 5, 4 of them were kind of like relatively deep shots down the seam. One of them was a post route. I mean, it was kind of more intermediate than deep, I suppose. And the last one was a little like jet, like fly motion that he caught off the flats and ran in. But primarily, he got clean releases, and in that game, he had a lot of mismatches against safeties. And safeties just generally aren't going to keep up with his kind of speed. So that brings a great deep threat element to Green Bay's offense if they were to target him. If we look at his PFF scores, he had a really great productive year this year. I mean, as evidenced in that Alabama game, he put up 5 touchdowns. Like, it's insane. Which actually led him to winning the Biletnikoff Award this year as the best receiver in college football. But overall for the season, he had a receiving grade of 78.2, which is pretty good. He had a few high games where he was in the high 80s, didn't score in 90s anywhere along the board. But he lined up primarily from the slot, as I said. 87.3% of his snaps were from the slot, and then the other 12.2 were from wide alignments, and he had like a handful that were in line. So you're really kind of looking at that slot option, but how do you get that clean release? That's the thing that I think NFL teams might have to scheme up a little bit until he can kind of build up a little bit more functional strength in the NFL, because he can get knocked off his position a bit when he's running routes. And we just haven't really seen a whole lot of can he handle getting off the line against press, because Tennessee was smart about how they employed him, which is great for them. But our NFL team's going to do the same thing, or are they going to expect more, from a high prospect? Some of his pros, as I mentioned, he's got elite speed. He's got really good hands, and he tracks the ball well down the field. And then he was incredibly productive. Some of the cons that PFF has is they say he lacks a little bit of creativity after the run. He's kind of more of a linear speed guy. So he doesn't set up defenders downfield. He's kind of just relying heavily on his speed. And then another thing they said was he primarily projects as a vertical threat. So they don't see a whole lot else from his route tree that's really giving defenses a lot of pause on is he going to go somewhere else. I don't entirely agree with that. I saw a good bit, especially early in the season. There was a game where he almost exclusively ran quick outs and kind of screen plays. So there are other options for getting him the ball and letting him kind of create with that speed. And then he was also, because of his deep threat ability, he was able to run comeback routes pretty successfully as well. But the big thing here is Green Bay has a specific type a lot of times when it comes to wide receivers. So Jalin Hyatt is a little bit of a departure from it. But I mean, we're still hearing that buzz that Green Bay is really interested. And some of the comps that I've seen thrown around, like one was Deshaun Watson, which I can see that a little bit. The one that came to mind when I watched his tape was Will Fuller. And I know there's a lot of buzz for a number of seasons early in Matt LaFleur's tenure with the Packers that they were interested in going out and getting Will Fuller. So if they're looking at Jalin Hyatt and potentially that kind of role and how they could use him that similar way, that could explain a little bit why Green Bay is really interested in Jalin Hyatt. But I'd like to know what you think. So leave a comment down below. Would you be interested in Jalin Hyatt coming to the Packers? We'll see you next time.